Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Harriett Tubman Report. I am Pamela Marshall. We are doing this show on the second Sunday of every month in honor of Harriet Tubman. It was her goal to bring people to freedom. She said she could have freed more people if they had known they were free. Well, if they had known they were slaves, rather. Well, today, I think our challenge is helping people to understand in spaces where they are still in bondage, and that's with the mind. Our show today is focused on two positions that exist in every community. There's a juvenile court judge and there's a district attorney. How do those positions impact what's happening in the community, in particularly as it comes to youth and the criminal justice system? African American youth are 4 times more likely to be arrested and incarcerated than white children. And in some states like Utah, where the percentage of African Americans is way lower, African American children are being arrested at 10 times the rate of other children in those communities. Linda Harris in Memphis, Tennessee, an attorney, has been an attorney for many years. Ms. Harris has also worked in law enforcement and in various aspects of the community. And she joins us today to help shed some light. I really want you to understand what these two positions mean and why these two elections are so important. Attorney Harris, thank you so much for joining us today on the Harriett Tubman Report.
Thank you for having me on your show today.
So, so tell us, you worked in law enforcement, then went to law school and became an attorney. And so you've seen this justice system from both angles. When we think about uh, the positions that we're going to be talking about today, of course, you could talk about so many things, but the two things that we're going to talk about today is the election of the juvenile court judge and the district attorney. Are you surprised that most people don't understand why it's important to participate in those elections?
No, I'm not, but I do want to add that I have represented people in the criminal justice system. That's the third,
Okay.
viewpoint from which I speak. So no, I don't. I don't think that most people understand the criminal justice system because it is a very complicated system. When we talk about what does a prosecutor do, a prosecutor, for example, is the gatekeeper in the criminal justice system. They determine whether charges will be placed against an individual. Most people think when they are arrested, they have been charged. Well, they have not been officially charged. That is the decisions, that those decisions rather are made by the prosecutor. So they determine who will be charged and what they will be charged with. They also have the power to make recommendations on whether individuals should be released. They make recommendations on what how much time a person should serve. Um, and so it's just so important. When I say release, I mean pre-trial, pre-trial bail release, because now people have to remember that when a person is charged with a crime and they may have a bail set, that they are not convicted of anything at that point. They're merely accused. They're the accused. And so we have some people who meet the standards to be released from prison, but they just simply cannot afford the bail.
So as it relates to our children, and when um, there was 3 strikes, you're out, and there were things that forbade African American or brown children from being in groups of more than 3, I think it was in some places. Um, the fact that law enforcement is now in schools and there are things that children were normally sent to the principal's office for, and that they're now turned over to law enforcement. What do you say to parents? Because we only have 30 minutes for this show, but I want to make sure that we help people understand that the juvenile court judge is an elected position. You need to know who that is and who's running for these positions.
Yes. So in Tennessee, it is the juvenile court judge and the prosecutor who make the decision as to which children will be transferred as adults. And so it is statutory. when we look at the statute that the prosecutor will list the factors from, it includes the charge. Well, the charge is one factor. You look at the child's background, their education, whether or not they have any priors, and the main goal under the statute is rehabilitation. Can this child be rehabilitated? That was the purpose of the juvenile justice system. But because we have a system, that's another reason why the prosecutor is so important. What they will do is they will prepare a petition to transfer the child to adult court. And then the child has what's known as an adjudication hearing, and that's the equivalent of a trial in adult court. And that's the decision that's made. They'll put on the proof, or that prosecutor has the option of not preparing a petition to send that child to juvenile court and have an order entered.
And so this is all happening. I don't think most people understand the fact that children go to hearings and they're not tried by a jury of their peers. It is the juvenile court judge who's making these decisions, and children can be questioned without their parents anywhere around when they're, and imagine you're 13, 14 years old, or even 17 years old. This is very intimidating for children. What is it that parents should be talking to their children about?
So when we talk about, that's a broad question. When you say what should parents talk to their
Well,
children?
as it relates to, we all know what that conversation is that we have with our children about if you get stopped by the police.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But parents are not having the conversation about if ever you are picked up and accused of something,
Yeah.
this is how you are to conduct yourself. These are the things that should be said or not be said. And does that child have a right to say, I don't want to talk to anybody until my parents get here?
Yes, they do. They have a right to say that. So children have the same rights as adults. So you may have heard of the Miranda warning, which is you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to be represented by counsel. So I would think that parents should tell their children, number one, if they're stopped by the police, don't resist. Don't give the police a reason to shoot you or to beat you. Cooperate, even if you feel that this is a wrongful arrest, because there are remedies for you otherwise if you can show that the police have violated your rights. And that police officer is more likely to be disciplined and maybe even terminated. If you feel that you're wrongly stopped, just cooperate. That's number one. Secondly, you don't want to make a statement without your parents being present. And you could say they don't have to be disrespectful. They just simply say, well, I've talked to my parent, and my parent has told me that when I'm stopped, I'm to contact them first and not speak to anyone until I've talked to them and they're with me.
When as elections happen in these positions, what is it that you would advise people in every community to do? Because these two positions, as you said, prosecutor is the gatekeeper. Then we have the juvenile court judge. What's your advice to people who are watching all over the country on the significance of these roles and the role that they play and who get in those positions?
It is so crucial for people to be informed about the people who they're voting for. And we have the internet. So all of this information is there. You can read about your prosecutor, you can read about your juvenile court judge, what are the latest stories about them. You can read about me. I'm on the internet. What life experiences have I had that would make me be a wise prosecutor as it relates to making decisions that affect the lives of children. And so you need to be informed. Just Google it. It's not hard to find out information about the prosecutor or the individuals who are seeking those offices.
My guest today on the Harriet Tubman Report is attorney Linda Harris in Memphis, Shelby County, Tennessee. Attorney Harris is sharing with us some very, very key information that I think sometimes we just go through the motion, and we see so much about presidential elections, mayoral, senatorial races. But why is it you think that we don't know very much about the judges and those roles?
Because if you're not in the criminal justice system, it's difficult to know. And most people, honestly, may not bring a lawsuit, within their lives, within their lifetime, or they may not have anyone who's touched by the criminal justice system during their lifetime. So they're not paying attention to those things. It's other, things in life that keep us busy, and we're preoccupied with those things. But judges are crucial. To the justice system too. I mean, they're as crucial as prosecutors. I think all over the United States, people are becoming more aware of what prosecutors do and the role of the prosecutors. We've had some changes in Chicago, in Philadelphia, Los Angeles, St. Louis. Kim Cox is in St. Louis. I'm sorry, Kim Cox is in Chicago. Kim Gardner is in St. Louis. So we're I think all over the United States, people are realizing that the United States is the #1 incarcerator in the world. And yet we have a lot of violence going on all over the United States. So we begin to understand, or at least we should understand and appreciate, that what we're doing is not working. We're building prisons, and we're building, well, at one point we had a lot of private prisons. But if we're not rehabilitating people and we're not working to really help them become productive if they're incarcerated, to return to society, we make them worse. When we take our children and we transfer them to adult court and throw them into a system that's a violent system where there's no true rehabilitation, what are we doing? We're making them worse. So if you think about a 15-year-old who may have committed an armed robbery, but all other factors are there: mother, father intact, good student, no priors. And we take that child and we transfer that child to adult prison. Now they're in another type of environment. It's violent, and they have to learn to survive. 10 years later, that child returns, now is an adult. What have we done?
Mm.
Child hasn't received any true rehabilitation. Is that child better off, or is that child worse?
Well, talk about the amount of money that's committed to locking up young people in the United States of America. You mentioned, Attorney Harris, that we lock up more people than anybody in the world. We're on 4.4% of the 8 billion people in the world, and we have 25% of the incarcerated people in the world. That to me is alarming. And the amount of money that's being spent versus money being spent to educate children. How much is spent to incarcerate children?
So MICA, which is Memphis Interfaith Coalition, of they had a program on Thursday. They did a workshop, and they reported that in Tennessee, on an annual basis, $230,000 is spent per prisoner to incarcerate, versus $9,600 per child per year to educate. And Shelby County, actually, we have 95 counties in
Wow.
the state of Tennessee. Shelby County has the highest number of individuals incarcerated in Tennessee prisons. Yet, we remain the county with the highest number of homicides. And we are #2, I think, that's the last I heard, of listed as number 2 of the most dangerous cities in the United States. So if you have a high incarceration rate and you're number 2, listed as number 2, the number 2 most dangerous city in the United States, then what's wrong? What are we doing?
So how is it the community can participate in this and finding the solutions as opposed to just watching it on First 48 um, with these positions? How can these positions, the juvenile court judge and the district attorney positions, be a part in the solution and not just participating in the locking up?
Well, well, I think one of the I'm a restorative practice trained individual. So I understand the concept of restorative practices is that people respond better and do better when you do things with them, not for them, not to them, and not neglectful. So what does that mean? When we talk about community engagement, we cannot sit at a table as people who work in the criminal justice system and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. And then you take it out to the public and say, here's what you're going to do. There are a lot in Shelby County, for instance, there are a lot of viable organizations that don't have funding that are doing good things with children and bringing these people to the table, individuals, businesses working with the school system, um, and the law enforcement, more the presence of Officer Friendly. Where did he go? Uh, you know, helping our kids to understand that the law enforcement officers are not, we got to show that. Law enforcement officers are not here just to lock you up. They're here to be to be your friends, your protectors. They're here for you, not here against you. They're here to work with you. So I think it is, I have a vision, but the planning comes in once you get in office and you bring people to the table and we put our heads together and decide how we're going to make a difference. I know one thing is that violence is learned behavior. And so one aspect of it would be, how do we teach people to peacefully resolve conflict, being a mediator. And so that's what we do. That's what I do. I meet with people to help them peacefully resolve conflict.
My guest today, attorney Linda Harris in Memphis, Tennessee. Attorney, you just mentioned something about officer friendly, which has not been the view for many African Americans. So there may be some who may be listening going, yeah, officer friendly, right.
Right.
You were in law enforcement.
I understand.
And so understanding law enforcement from riding in the car in neighborhoods, what is it that does need to happen on the side of law enforcement to help bridge that gap from years ago when law enforcement was organized as the keepers of Jim Crow laws for African Americans?
Right.
How do you bridge that gap today?
So I equate it to a marriage, right? Um, so in a marriage, when someone is unfaithful, they can't just come home and say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and we pick up from where we started.
Mhm.
Law enforcement today has people don't trust them, and they have to work to earn that trust back. And how do you do that? You do it by holding the law enforcement officers who violate the rights of others accountable. That's where you start, and you eliminate those people. We have a lot of instances where people in our community feel that no action was taken when law enforcement officers violated the constitutional rights of individuals, and I know that that happens. So that has to be addressed, and I intend to do that. If we don't ignore that, then we begin to restore the trust. If people know that action will be taken against police officers who violate the constitutional rights of others, that's the first step in restoring trust. There are good police officers, though, in the community who care. And I do believe that they want the bad police officers out, but where do they turn? Who can they turn to to assure them that the ones who are violating constitutional rights will be eliminated.
Attorney Linda Harris in Memphis, Tennessee, we're talking about two positions, two very important elected positions in communities. One, the juvenile court judge, impacting on one end children who enter into the criminal justice system, and the fact that African American children are locked up at a much higher percentage rate than white children, even in communities where um, African Americans are way under when it comes to the ratio in the population. And then the district attorney's office, as has been described, the gatekeeper. Attorney, this position of district attorney in helping to make decisions that happen on the adult level of our justice system, when people enter into this position, I know there are different phases. Um, Sometimes their cases are handed over to the state or something. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, I've heard people in our community on a number of occasions. So when a person is arrested, they are in Tennessee taken to General Sessions Court. That is where a judge will make a determination. You have an arraignment, then you have a probable cause hearing to determine whether or not it's more likely than not that you committed the crime. 51% is not a very high standard. And then I hear some people, so sometimes the judge will dismiss that downstairs. They said, I don't see that there's even a 51% chance that this person committed this crime. That's no probable cause. The district attorney has the discretion, even though the judge said there's no probable cause, to take the case to the grand jury. That is the same office. I've
So
heard
the
some,
district attorney can decide that.
yes, the district attorney can decide after the judge has, in General Sessions Court, has said, I don't see that there's any probable cause. I don't think this person committed this crime because under the standard of probable cause, there's not anything here. That's not the end of it. The judge dismisses the case. So the district attorney can turn around and, notwithstanding what the judge has found, take it to what's a grand jury, which is approximately 23 citizens that are assembled under statute to listen to cases, to make the same finding that the judge has made. But they can do that, and that is done sometimes here in Shelby County. People are then taken to the grand jury and they are indicted, and it goes upstairs to criminal court. And I've heard people say, oh, it was picked up by the state. That's the same office. There is no state office separate from that, from the local district attorney office here in Shelby County, that makes the decision to take to the grand jury, and then you're upstairs in criminal court. Now, if that case has been dismissed downstairs in General Sessions Court, you're going to be rearrested. You're going to have to post another bond. Yes.
Really?
Yes, yes, yes. Now, if the judge downstairs finds that that there is probable cause and bounds you over, that's what it's called, bounding,
Right.
to the grand jury, to the same process that I just described. So when the judge says you're bound over, what he's saying is you can take this to the grand jury now. But when the judge dismisses it, he says you shouldn't take it to the grand jury now. But in a number of cases, it's still taken to the grand jury because the prosecutor has that power under the law.
And so who's the boss of the district attorney?
The people who elect the district. That's who the boss should be. There is no one watching once they are elected, and this is an 8-year position. Once they are elected, they have, just unlimited discretion. Well, not really. They're supposed to remain ethical and follow the law. So to the extent that they're limited under the law, they shouldn't, but they do have a lot of discretion. They have this discretion to, in some instances, because I see 3 category of people. One are those who are unsafe, and we have to protect people and keep them off the street. And even still then, if they can be rehabilitated, but they need to go and get off the street so that we can be safe. Then there are the category of people who don't need to be incarcerated but need to be rehabilitated, who come into the system. So you could do something like a deferment, which is different from diversion. A deferment would be an agreement that I won't prosecute you if you comply with these conditions, if you follow these requirements, if you meet these requirements, which may be get a GED or, do community service or this. And we're talking about on a case by case basis, basically, and making the determination of where they need to be, having them evaluated, because we have a lot of mental health issues in Shelby County. We have a lot of drug and alcohol issues in Shelby County, and that's not considered sometimes when they come in the system. So that's what I mean. How can we help rehabilitate people and help them to become better citizens?
Well, that you bring up mental health.
Yes.
And we don't have much time, so I'm going to have to invite you to come back because I think this has been very informative. Looking at people who are incarcerated around the country, there's a huge percentage of people that are incarcerated who really have mental health issues that are not being addressed on this side of the bars. If they were being addressed on this side of the bars, then they would need to be behind bars. They would be in the appropriate places for treating their mental illness. How is it that we can look toward rectifying that problem?
I, I don't think that the United States does well with mental issues mental health issues in general. But I think,
Yet the numbers are rising.
yeah, but early diagnosis, and so I will have to come back because this goes to the schoolhouse to jailhouse pipeline, where in a number of instances, things are manifesting when the children are young and they are labeled as bad, and then they're not dealt with, where I don't like term bad because, I think children are troubled. They may be disobedient. They may be unruly. They may be disrespectful. But what is bad? But in the criminal justice system, they're viewed as bad. And this is, I think, Black kids are viewed as bad, where other kids are viewed as troubled. And you think about that. What does that mean if you're bad versus you're troubled youth? Which one are you more likely to help?
Which one is society more welcoming of you helping?
Yes.
The bad child or the troubled child, when in fact both need help and both are troubled.
Both are.
But your label depends on what skin you're wrapped in.
That's right.
Attorney Linda Harris in Memphis and Shelby County, you said some things that I hope will help people to understand why it is critical, not just important, but critical that they find out who's the juvenile court judge and who's their district attorney. And as you said, the internet is available to all of us today. And to do some research to find out who these persons are in our community and what their views are, because whether or not you have had the unfortunate to have someone have to go before a judge or you yourself have been before a judge, it's like your health. It's better to find out about it before you get there. Correct?
That's right. That's very true. And we do need to be informed. We need to be educated on the system, and we need to be informed about what's happening in our system.
And again, what is the best way for people to find that kind of information out?
So Micah, here in Memphis, we have the MICAH, which is Memphis Interfaith Council, and I'm sorry, I should have checked what the other two stand for, but it's MICAH. They have a whole workshop, and they have a Facebook page. Go there. They're educating the public on some of the issues that exist in our criminal justice system here. And then they can just Google it. Google Shelby County District Attorney. Google Linda Harris. And then you can learn more about the individuals learn more about me, but there's a lot of information out there for people to find. There are also,
Just in general, across the country, for people to find out who these people are, because they may just, like, I don't even know what number to call. I don't even know what to look up.
so I think if you do prosecutor, district attorney, I think you'll find a wealth of information out there. If you Google juvenile court judge, you're going to find generally what's going on in the United States. If you Google incarceration, just simple terms,
And
prison.
and and why is it important to me or to somebody else that might be saying, why is this important to me? Because I'm not there. I have not had to participate. I don't have a child that's participated. Why is this an issue for the entire community?
Because it affects what happens to us on the outside. It affects if we're not paying attention, then we will be having people come back from a system and they will be committing crimes. They will be trained. I can tell you stories about people who went to prison and came out better criminals. And so then we are affected by it in our society because we may become victims of crime. And we want people to be rehabilitated. We want people to be productive citizens, right? I mean, I hope
Mhm.
we do. I hope that's what we want. And that's the goal of I'm a criminal justice major. In the undergraduate school, I was taught that rehabilitation is one of the goals of the criminal justice system, and we forgot that along the way. All we do is punish.
Linda Harris, Attorney Linda Harris in Memphis and Shelby County. Our discussion today on the Harriet Tubman report has been about two positions, the juvenile court judge and the district attorney. And as you mentioned, rehabilitation, I don't know that there is a study that's been conducted to show that locking people up in cages does anything in a positive way for their emotional stability and to make them a more viable citizen if and when they are returned into society. So this is an issue for all of us, whether it is you individually in trying to work with a youth group that's doing positive things in your community so that children don't end up in the system, or you're a part of a larger organization that can help in helping to teach people about these two very critical elected positions in your community, the juvenile court judge and the district attorney. Attorney Linda Harris in Memphis and Shelby County, I really, really appreciate you sharing with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is the Harriet Tubman report. My, I like to call Harriet Tubman Attorney Harris, my mentor and spiritual leader, from her courage that she had to do what she did, helping people to freedom through the Underground Railroad. And I will say again, she said that she could have freed more if they had known they were slaves. We have some challenges today in lack of thinking, in lack of knowledge. And that's our goal here, to inform, educate, and inspire. Until next time, I'm
Thank you.
Pamela Marshall. You're so welcome. I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast. Remember, there is healing at the well. Make it a great moment. We'll see you next time.